My blind date gave me an IQ test on the spot. When he found out that I had a good score, he said he won't be able to date me because I'm too smart for him and I will end up making his life miserable. Reddit, do you have any WTF date stories? I once went on a date with this girl. We started with a movie. After the movie finished, as we were pulling out of the parking lot, she saw her father leaving the same movie with a woman that wasn't her mother. After our first date, he gave me a verbal report card in the car. One of my negatives was that I took too small of bites. Apparently, my good table manners made him nervous. But one of my positives was that it seemed like I liked to be in the kitchen. About 2 hours after the date, he called me to tell me that he had looked through my entire Facebook and read all of my blog. He had decided that I was cooler than he'd thought on our date. So he called the girl he had plans with the next night and dumped her to hang out with me. Needless to say, there was no second date. Female, upon further inspection, I have decided that your specifications meet my expectations. Report tomorrow for dinner and I shall continue your evaluation. I went on a first date with this guy who seemed really sweet. We went out to a really classy dinner. The food was great. The atmosphere was fantastic. But at the end of the main course, he whipped out his phone and started showing me pictures he'd taken of himself naked. Like different angles, lighting, dynamic effects. I rode with him to the restaurant, so I had to sit next to him on the ride home and fight the urge to fling the door open and tuck and roll. I once had a blind date walk into the restaurant wearing a burqa niqab. She was not Muslim, but wanted us to have a conversation without me knowing what she looked like. Kind of a what the heck moment, or something out of a TV show. But I saw her point. I ended up disliking her based on her personality. Should have let her know that there's a thing called the internet where you can talk to people you will never see. Failing that, there's always a phone. Dated a girl for a couple of weeks. Went back to her place, started opening up to each other for the first time. Conversation was something like this. She got into talking about her family, her talking about her bipolar mother, her talking about her probably being bipolar because of it, her talking about how she has no luck with men because she gets overly emotional, her crying about it while I tried to console her, her accusing me of being just like every other guy that is going to leave her, her yelling at me with tears streaming down her face to get the heck out of her house because I'm an idiot. This whole transformation took about 10 to 15 minutes. She also messaged me a week later asking when or where we should go on another date. I'm usually a sucker for helping people in need, but this is one case I'm just not qualified to deal with. Yeah, I had a similar experience. She would flip back and forth from calling me an idiot and punching me to climbing in my lap and kissing me. I didn't even know her. She'd flip back and forth without any kind of trigger. I could identify every 15 to 20 minutes. She had shown up drunk at my house. A total mess. I went out with this girl 4 or 5 times, but this was the first time I picked her up from her house. When I went to drop her off, there was an extra car in the driveway. I said that she had never mentioned having a roommate and asked when she was going to introduce me. She said, "Oh no, that's my husband's car." I read this as, this happened in 5th or 6th grade, then skip to the end. I was confused. I had a gal ask me what I looked for in a partner. She seemed annoyed that my answer was rather general and proceeded to pull out her list. It was 8 typed pages. She started going through them and giving me check marks. I didn't get very many. At least she had a checklist. It makes it easier to spot the crazies, no? I had recently started dating this guy, and we were on our way to Circuit City to browse around for a few things he needed for his computer. While in the car on the way there, an annoying techno song came on, and I commented on how I couldn't stand how often they played it on the radio. He turned it up a bit, telling me that he liked the song. I laughed and jokingly said, "Okay, well, I'm not talking to you until the song is finished." I smiled at him and looked away, just enjoying the car ride. We parked the car and I immediately sensed that something is wrong. He's walking a few paces in front of me, clearly trying to avoid walking side by side. I let it go and run to catch up to him. I take his arm and kiss him on the cheek and proceed to walk to the store with him. Again, he seems distant. I ask him what's wrong, and he tells me he's fine. I let it go and decide to enjoy the shopping we were there to do. We're browsing through the store, and suddenly I realize that he's nowhere to be seen. It's around 7 p.m. at the time, and the store was pretty crowded. I figured he must have wandered off to another aisle, and I do the same. 15 minutes later, there's still no sign of him at all. I'm walking through the store, searching for him, and nothing. It's now 8 p.m. I call his cell phone, and it rings out. I walk out to the car, and it's empty. There are about 6 other stores in the complex, and I wasn't about to walk to each one searching for him. It's now 8:45, and I'm getting scared. The store closes at 9, so there aren't that many people there. Finally, the store is closing, and I walk out to the nearly empty parking lot. There he is, sitting in the car. I ran over with tears in my eyes, asking what happened. He looks at me calmly and says, "Now you know how it feels when the lines of communication have been cut." That is actually a really horrific story. Where was he the whole time, just watching you look for him? It was my freshman year of college, and I had started dating this 23-year-old. He took me to Wendy's for a date because neither of us had a lot of money. He had one of those monotonous voices and could drone on and on and on about nothing. He was telling me one such story when I swallowed my water the wrong way and started coughing. This was still a date, so at first I tried to politely expel the water, but to no avail. As he continued to talk, I started hacking all over the table. Tears were streaming down my face, water was dripping down my chin, and I was pounding my own back at a futile attempt to get the devil water out of my system. He kept talking. Trying to hold the water in at first was a bad idea. I could not stop coughing. I bent down under the table, hoping the angle would make it easier to cough up the liquid. Everybody in the whole restaurant was staring at me in silence, except for my date, of course. He was still telling his story. I finally finished hacking up my lungs and tried to listen to the rest of his story. I had no idea what he was talking about. He continued with his anecdote, unfazed by my wet, red face and smeared makeup. When he finally finished, I apologized for my coughing fit and explained that I had swallowed water the wrong way. To which he replied, "Oh, I was wondering what was wrong with you." The only blind internet date I ever went on, in 1993, no less. He took me out for dinner and a movie. We saw Schindler's List at the Dollar Theatre. No lie, his choice. Afterwards, he told me he didn't believe the Holocaust happened. Dinner was at Burger King. My meal of chicken tenders and a small fry cost $4 at the time. Afterwards, I bid him goodnight and he complained that I didn't put out because he bought me dinner. Hell, even if I did it for a living, I'd charge more than $4. I didn't stick around to go watch Apollo 13 and find out if he thought the moon landing was faked. And perhaps eventually barter my favors for an extra value meal. My self-esteem in college was low, but not that low. How did internet dating exist in 1993? 9 out of 10 dates I've been hooked up with via dating sites have all started out with a woman saying a variation of the following: "I'm not looking for a boyfriend, I'm just looking for a friend." Now I know I'm not the best looking dude out there, but come on. You've already seen my pic, recent too, and we met through a dating website for the purpose of dating, not hanging out. I liked this girl for a long time, but she lived with her boyfriend. When they finally broke up and she kicked him out of the house, I told her I'd really like to date her once she'd had some time to recover from the breakup. She said she'd love to. For the next month or so, she'd send me flirty texts, pics of her blowing me kisses, etc. But there was always some excuse for why we couldn't go back to her house. Finally, I found out from her friend that her boyfriend was still living there and they were still having fun. But they were technically broken up somehow. When I called her out and asked why she would respond that way she did when I was so explicit with my intentions, she said, "I thought you meant like go out on dates as friends."